Good day, everyone. Here's another update to the new Boston project. The company did a press release this week indicating that hole number 2 is finished, and they got down 710 meters. So they kept going. If they kept going, they would have kept getting a mineralized zone. So the program stopped for whatever reason, and now we're kind of just stuck in what we know and what we don't know. So I think that's basically what I'm going to cover, and I might cover a couple of other items as well. So one of the things that sticks out here is this statement here: there's an overall increase in visible pyrite, molybdenite, and copper sulfide content downhole, both towards and within the monzonite porphyry. What we know: copper sulfide, copper chalcopyrite, molybdenite, those are good words. Pyrite, maybe not so good, but maybe it means something geological. If you see that, you maybe have other minerals that are included in that as well. And then they're comparing kind of the somewhat similar photos in hole 2 from the 9 meter to the 522. So we're going to get a bit into that as well. And then also this difficult to convey the volume and intensity of veining throughout. Our brains are definitely stuck in the 2D world. We see, a core photo with lines. It's extremely hard for us to visualize that in a huge block of rock and understand how interconnected that is with the veining structure throughout, and how intense that is, and how much tonnage is actually of that material. We can't conceptualize that as well very easy. I worked on a project with a very large base metal project, and we're downtown, and one of the senior people is like, okay, look outside, look at that building, go up 40 stories, and that's the size of one stope in that deposit, or it was 20 stories or something like that. But it was something conceptually that, like, oh man, that's really large. So it's really tough unless we have something to compare it to. Anyway, so this was the release. I'm gonna kind of jump around here, but let's just go into the photos I've kind of cherry picked from the different things. So this one's very interesting. We'll talk more about this photo. This is kind of like that marbleized type material again. So this is deeper down. So this will be a good to compare with one of the earlier photos as well. Okay. So what do we know versus what we don't know? I think for hole 001, we don't know a lot. We kind of know that the Gaussons are at surface. There's copper on surface, and we know that it's stockwork, and they drilled through it, and we've seen some of the photos, and kind of steady throughout. So, and there's not a lot in the area to say, hey, we're guaranteed to get this, and we know what's going to go there. We don't really know that. We're kind of blind. I think more blind with hole 1 than parts of hole 2. So what we know with hole 2, here's one of the maps. So we actually have holes in the vicinity that we do know. So on the top right here, we have 005C. Okay, and we do know that there is copper in there, closer to surface. We know they tested for silver. So in this case, 6 grams per ton silver. So that plays a key role. And we know it does have moly in it. Right now it just says 0.01%. I'm not sure what that means. And we know that there's parts of those were grading 0.38% copper as well. What we do also know is we know some assays from NB2 as well. So we got information from both of these. This is basically with the collar of 002. So you would assume that the first part of the hole can be inferred with kind of the top parts of these holes as well. I've drawn a little circle on there as well because we do have one more bit of information that came to light recently. Okay, so this is the photo that the company sent not too long ago. You can see where hole 002 went through the ground, but you'll notice up here on the left that there's an adit there. So whatever, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, someone decided, hey, you know what, let's try to chase a vein. Let's go get some mineralized zone. And you know, back then they were not chasing moly. So it's definitely, they were going in here, they were looking for the quartz veining, they were looking for concentrated copper, maybe some silver as well. And I have no idea how long this adit goes, but you would assume that, you know, it's been around, hasn't collapsed over the last 100 years. They must have found something concentrated. So that kind of is our third bit of information in here to indicate that, yes, that first 20, 30 meters of this hole is going to, you know, is going to tell it, you know, we know some stuff. So I don't think it'll be a surprise when we get assays back. We don't know the precision on that, but we do know a little bit of that. Okay, so that's where we have PNP 005 and B2, and then that little circle as well. So if I look at NB2, I can't remember if I mentioned this before. Here's a bit of a spreadsheet of what NB2 looks like. And it's a bit further south and a little bit away from the anomaly. But this clearly shows that, you know, in the top, you know, 30 to 40 meters, we were hitting some reasonable mineralization in that zone. And then as you get deeper, it becomes, you know, a bit weaker because you're kind of going away from that concentration, you know, coming up from that source into that entire area. So we need to talk about equivalencies. So I'm gonna kind of go over that a little bit right now. So try to make it easy. So if we have copper per ton on the market, let's say it's $10,000 per ton, it might be, you know, 9.4 thousand today, but just a nice round number, $10,000 per ton. If you do all the conversions with silver, go to whatever Kitco, get the ounces, convert it into grams, all that good stuff. The price of silver per gram is roughly US $1 per gram. So that's a really easy number to remember. And then if you talk about copper per ton at $10,000, if you divide it by a million, because grams per ton is basically, there's a million grams in a ton. So divided by a million gets you how much copper you get per gram. So basically you get 1 penny, 1 US penny per gram of copper. It's a base metal still, it's not a precious metal. So you still have that. So silver is obviously worth a lot more. And in this case, if we now just compare, what are we going to get per gram? Silver copper ratio is basically 100 to 1. So that way, if you have how much silver you have, you can just convert it times 100 to get the, you know, the copper equivalency. So if you have, you know, 6 grams per ton, which happens to equate to parts per million, which a lot of the numbers are in, then if you have 6 parts per million, you get 600 parts per million copper. So wherever you have a silver grade in grams per ton, just change it to parts per million, times it by 100, and then you get your copper grade equivalency, roughly. Okay. So now if we look at moly, so copper, let's say it's roughly, you know, US $10,000 per ton. Moly sulfides, MOS2, which is the commercial product that is being sold on the market that you'll see. It's you know, in the last 6 months, it's anywhere between $40,000 to $50,000 per ton. So I'm just putting in here roughly as $40,000 per ton. So that means if you have a commercial ton of moly, it's 4 times more valuable than copper. So if you have a parts per million or percent grade of MOS2, then you can just times it by 4, and then that'll give you your copper equivalency. Okay, so those are rough formulas that we can get. So in NB2 here, we have some copper and moly grades, and you can see in the first 100 feet, I've just taken the copper grades, I've taken the moly grades, and I've just taken the coppers, and then I've multiplied the molys by 4, which is what we have over here, to get that the moly copper equivalency. Okay, and then for silver, in this case, um, we don't have silver information in here, but we do know that PNB 005 does have a silver grade, so I just applied that 6 grams per ton over here, and then this is what we get here. So if we take a look at NB2 and we look at the top, the top 100 feet, you can see that we are hitting some grades. These are parts per million, so all you got to do is put a decimal in front of it. So this is 0.4% copper equivalency, that's 0.5%, 0.4%, 0.6%, there's 0.5%, 0.1%. So this is a little bit outside of that, but there is no reason not to expect, the top 30 meters of drill hole 002 to at least, get around this area. Maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but I don't think that we're going to be looking at these lower grades here. So we'll see what we get. The other thing I like about silver, rather than even including it in the copper price, because it's really easy, it's US $1 per gram. You can see if it's 3 grams per ton or 5 grams per ton or 6 grams per ton. On the operating cost of an open pit mine, the cost is going to be anywhere from, let's say, US $20, let's say US $20 to US $30 in a small open pit in Nevada. Throwing out numbers in there, and then we have to figure, well, how much revenue would we get from copper and moly? So if you have 5 grams per ton silver, that's US $5. I just shave that off of the operating cost, and now you can say, okay, well, we're looking at US $15 per ton to US $25 per ton. Okay, and then if let's say we're looking for 0.5 percent copper equivalency, well, 0.5% at $10,000 per ton is roughly US $50 per ton. So then you're starting to see what kind of margin are you getting. So if you get a copper cost to mill and produce the product at US $25 per ton, and you're getting US $50 per ton in revenue, and then if you have huge amount of tonnage, that's when you starting to see economics come into the photo, into the picture. So that's kind of a mixed bag there, but just showing that we do have some information at the top of this. Okay. Now I'm gonna go to that the original hole from drill hole 002. Okay. So this was the one that was found at like 9 meters. It's marbleized. Again, we kind of could see what kind of grades we could get just based on what we want. What I want to focus on this photo is really the vein type. We like type A, B, C, D. I've learned some of that, but anyway, so we know there's a transition. The like type A means that you've kind of like that's one feed into the system. There's no cross-cutting of veins, and then when you get into the the other letters, it means you've had maybe multiple events. You've had multiple veins cutting other veins. So in this case, we can kind of see, kind of come through here, come through here. It's kind of just kind of one vein that's kind of feeding all the areas. This comes to here and then it doesn't continue. So you can kind of see that, throughout here as well. So now if we fast forward to, well, let's look at that other photo that kind of looks the same, but does it or not? Okay. So this is the photo that I want to look at. What really, stuck out to me was this area up top here, right? And now you kind of have the whole chicken and egg theory. Is like, which vein came first? There's a ton of, vein cross-cutting in here. So, there's that whole concept of type A. It looks like this might have had multiple events. You have multiple events, you have multiple chances of mineralization depositing every event here. So we have, this vein's cross-cutting this vein. We have this squiggly vein here, this cross-cutting here. We got all this things cross-cutting here. You can see a different color here, cross-cutting there. And then we have this and this and this. So it's all over the map. So you can see that this effect of the veins getting cross-cut is different, and it's more intense. And that goes into that initial statement on the press release that's saying as you get lower down, you're seeing an increase in mineralization. And I think that's one thing that's directly obvious there is the veins there. In the first couple of videos I did, the more darkness, the more black, that's where the minerals are forming here. I think you can see on here on this side of this vein, you get the black intensity there. I like the fact that that you have this this black in general throughout, and then you can see here on one of the cuts that you have all the black staining in there. So this whole area, it'd be interesting, be nice if we were to get, the assays, per, every 2 meters or whatever, so we can validate, hey, what are we seeing at 521? And these are the grades we're getting. I doubt that's going to happen. We're probably going to get more aggregate grades combined. We're not going to get necessarily that fine detail. There is reference that Gunning had in there that they're going to take the geochemical data from all this program. So again, we're talking about 2 or 3 minerals, but Gunning and Dahlia will be looking at 50 plus elements that come out of that. They can compare it with some of the samples they have on surface, and they can make decisions on kind of what's happening here more so than just the key minerals. The key minerals are the economic minerals, and that's where a lot of the focus is on. So if there's some positives on that, then that can will create a lot of momentum for the project. Okay. The other comment was it's hard to justify the or just to portray the veining, the amount of veining. So what we can do here is on another project that I was looking at, they have, different levels of intense stockwork veining, medium, low stockwork veining. And what does this mean? So in that one project, basically anything that has 50 veins per meter is basically intense stockwork, intense veining in a stockwork, and that was the definition. So if we just go in this photo from 521 to 522, that's basically 1 meter. And we just start counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. You can see that we could easily get to that 50 veins per that meter. So that in that definition would be this is very intense stock work. Um, on that project that I'm talking about, which is interesting, it 1907, I think it was 1970s image. This is the Red Chris project in BC, which has been a mine for many, many, many years now. They actually correlated on the bottom left here that if you have scattered veins, you're going to get less than 0.25% copper. If you have weak to moderate stock work, then you're going to get 0.25 to 0.5% copper. And then if you have moderate to strong stock work, then you're going to have a greater than 0.5% copper. So it'll be interesting, like how much of that stockwork veining is leaning toward the strong, the intense stockwork, 50 veins per meter, 30 veins per meter. And I think it makes logical sense, even based on that this stuff up here, if this is all mineral sulfides and copper and moly and maybe silver, this is going to be much, is pretty good grade at some point. So we'll obviously find out, but I just wanted to bring that up. And this, again, it kind of looks like that, this picture, but there are key differences onto it. So just based on what we know, this should grade roughly around what we saw in the NB2 and the other hole. So inferring the other photo with more intense veining, more dark things around the holes, that should theoretically have more minerals in it, and that's kind of what they said in the statement. As you go further down, you get it. So if this is around 0.4, 0.5 copper equivalent, what is the other stuff? So I think that's where we have a little bit more visibility on some of these edge holes in drill hole 002, where 001 basically goes through the meat of the disseminated, I guess, body. We should see more, I think, more volatile grades coming out of drill hole 002. There are a couple, deeper holes here. So this is one. It's kind of got that, there's the beigey pink. This has more of the shiny pyrite on it, and then this is the same here. So this, I mean, just looking at the what we've seen with Jeep mine and stuff like that, are as you get deeper through that and across, are you hitting more moly on that? I mean, this again, just looking at the color codes, it looks like this could have more moly in it, but we'll find out. It'll be interesting to see all the differences as well. We did get a sneak peek at another image from drill hole 002. This is actually at 76 to 78 meters, but this is it was interesting. This was in one of the videos that Justin was doing a screen sharing, and he flashed up onto this screen. There's nothing material here. It's just a couple of photos on there. Nothing obvious in the core, but it's interesting that where we are in technology. So basically this looks like Justin is doing a photo of the core every half meters. It says wet, so probably taking, washing it down with water, because you get a different quality of photo out of that. And then this is uploaded to the cloud. So even though Justin probably is at site doing the core logging, Gunning is sitting in his office, and he's getting this information almost in real time. This is something that you couldn't do in the 1970s, couldn't do in the 1980s, couldn't do in the 1990s. Maybe you could start doing in the 2000s, but even then, the slow internet would probably drive you nuts. And then the 2010s, and now you can get the satellite feeds that they have, get this information, get it uploaded, get huge quality photos from digital cameras up to Vancouver to get more core looking. So you get the two sets of eyes on all the core from Drillhole 01 and Drillhole 002. Yeah, so that is it for a lot of the core logging. So I'm gonna talk briefly about the Jeep zone, which is over there, in a different area. But I think when VR Resources saying there's X number of tons in a model, to say that is very relevant for mineralization. When some of the things say, oh, there's 1,000 feet of 0.08 moly, I think that might be accurate, yet very imprecise. We do actually have access to core log from Jeep Mine. This was in 1985 when this thing was put together, but from a drill hole in 1981. I think whenever they did the drilling season there, FRM Minerals. What I like about this is that if you look at moly testing in the early 1960s, apparently it was very inaccurate. Some of the results, you'd get much higher results than what was reality, and vice versa. And that cleaned itself up toward the end of the 1960s, and that's when Conoco did a ton of their drilling and their assays. So the assumption is that what Conoco did and what they've released should be relevant, should be accurate, should be pretty close. So this report from 1981, at least for me personally, validates that what Conoco was seeing, what it is pretty close to what they were drilling in 1981 and what we saw. So that kind of validates the entire Conoco model as being fairly accurate, and yet, just on a general basis. But it's interesting. This log is just this core logging is insane. So this is the Jeep mine down here. This is where the holes are. And then we have L8112 and L815 up there. So those are this information that's included in here. The NB4 drill hole that you see on some maps is a bit further north of this. So again, this is a bit further south when maybe some of the material came up and then horizontally through this area. Some of it went over to the Blue Scarn area. But it's just interesting. So this log just, you have to just understand these numbers because it's quite interesting how they put this log together. So you got simple stuff from to interval lab number. That's the samples that they've sent, and then you have something called MO, W, and F%. Okay. First thing you notice is that the MO and the W are a mixture of decimals and whole numbers. So one has to assume that if you see 116 here, that's 116 parts per million moly, and if you see the decimals, then you have to assume that that's 0.041% moly. W, I assume that's wolfram, tungsten. Again, if you look at the market values for that, it's not very much, so there's not really going to be any economics that I can see from tungsten, including it at all. And then you have F%, which I'm making the assumption that it's Fe, which is iron, and I'm still trying to figure out if that value, that percent iron, has any correlation to any of these results. I haven't really found it, but it's there. So again, it's geochemical. So they did moly and tungsten, which is kind of probably what they were looking for at the time. and then they threw in F iron, um, just as another element to get the lab to test. These are composites, so they must break it up into different chunks and send it to the lab. Okay. So the other thing you have to watch out for is what does MO actually mean in this case? And it's a little bit surprising. Um, you actually have to go down further. Okay. So I mean, you actually have some core logging. So, and you actually have some, RQD, so quality of the ground. So you can actually see that the let's call it poor quality that we've seen with New Boston. Reason they've gone really slow to get maximum recovery is not just there. This is a vertical hole that went through here, and you can see 20 to 30%, 70 to 80%, 30 to 40%. This is all over the place. Um, and you can see that, there's vein quartz there, and they have different symbols. And then they have all this information as well. I try to big old artificial intelligence here. I've try to use 2 or 3 different techniques in that space, um, and a complete failure of converting this into something that is recognized. Um, I use Excel and try to import a table. It's horrible results. A Microsoft Copilot can import an image. Horrible results. I found a third party on a website and it gave me 50% results. So the miracle of artificial intelligence implies that not only do you have a huge amount of data available, but all that data has been properly digitized, data entered, and then it can kick in. This whole um, artificial intelligence can read this and summarize this for me. Unlikely. I can use my eyes and my brain, and I can see down here that this says staining quartz veins, and I can do that within like microseconds. And artificial intelligence engines they're gonna struggle to convert that. Maybe in 10 years they'll get even better and they'll do that. Um, but yeah, so I mean, we've seen the miracle of artificial intelligence, but again, it implies that it has billions of access data that's easily consumable by the engines, and then it'll give you information. So anyway, so if we go down further, so yeah, this is a little bit of a step out from what we see uh, in the recent results, but here we have MO percent on this side, and then we have estimated grade over there. It's like when they sent this to the lab, they got basically they got the raw element of moly. So moly in itself, percent moly is not your commercial grade that you sell. It's that MOS2. Um, so all those moly grades in here have to be converted to MOS2 to see that. And to validate that, I think there's a couple sections on here. Um, let me see. You can see some of the moly grades here are insane um, throughout here. So yeah, if anyone wants to digitize this for the greater good, excellent. Where? Again, they have moly here. Just looking at the left-hand side here. Usually they have, so they've used these tables and they use it in different ways. For sure, okay, here we go. So on the right-hand side, we have a moly percentage, and on the left-hand side over here, we have the moly S2 converted. So, that just validates the fact that that is a moly grade. So you have to be really careful, I think, is basically the point when you are looking at data. What does it mean? What is this talking about? What is it MOS2? Is it just pure moly? This one even has like they have some scarns in here. So there's a lot of information spread out through this report. Um, but it's all over the map. So it's quite interesting that this looking at this kind of half assay, half log. So I did digitize the first part of it. This is L81. I got down to 467 meters before I decided that I don't need to keep going at this point. So what does this tell me? So this is the deep zone. We know that they didn't test for copper. But we do know that if you actually read those core logs that I just showed you, they do reference copper in literal text in there. So we do absolutely know that there is copper from the core logging in the Jeep zone. We do know that nobody actually did any assays, or maybe they did, but they're not available. I think it's just, if you go back to 1981 and you look at copper price and you look at moly price and you look at silver price toward the end of 1981, you can see why maybe they didn't do that. So I think, 1980 and first part of 81, there was huge inflation. Gold took off, silver took off, and then it crashed. So I think by the time they were doing this whole in 1981, toward the end, there's probably a reason why they didn't even bother testing for silver in that case, and maybe copper wasn't in vogue as well, and maybe moly was a bit more of a commodity at the time. Um, so I just took the moly percentage, converted it into MOS2, and then I just converted it to copper equivalency, even though we're not actually adding copper on it. But just to show you that, hey, there's bands of a grade in here. So if we look down here at 1.17% copper, but down here we got 0.5 to 1%. So if we actually look at this whole zone here, we're actually getting 0.61% copper. Okay, and that's roughly over 60 feet, right? So I think that's feet. Yeah, did that. So you can see there's moly throughout as we get down, but there are definitely bands of moly here. And this only goes down to here, but this is another 1,500 feet, and there's different bands of moly throughout. So I think I was just emphasizing the point that saying 0.08% of moly over 1,000 feet is not necessarily reality. It might be generalized average, but this is not an evenly disseminated ore body by any stretch. I'm very interested in drill hole 001 for the east zone to see, maybe we're going to get some more consistent grades throughout that dissemination. It'll be interesting to watch for sure. Okay, is there anything else that I did not comment on? Just going back to this photo, it's going to be very interesting what we see there with the intense veining. They didn't get down to that kind of triangle. When I look at this, also on the, when I saw the photos for drill hole 001, I'm like, does this represent conductivity? Electricity can flow throughout, and it was kind of going through maybe the center part of the ore body or mineralized zone. I'm not allowed to call it ore until it's economic. Looking at this photo itself, though, and again the vein intensity, 100%. You know, if this is around kind of that structure, I totally could see this being very conductive. That electricity is going to flow through this very, very fast. And maybe that's what we're seeing. There's these areas around these zones that you're getting this. As you get deeper, maybe the conductivity goes up. But now, I mean, this is the first time I've had visualization to kind of say yes. Um, I think, you know, Dr. Gunning and Justin will say that the previous core, yes, it's conductive, but I think this as a layman's person in this area, you know, you could totally convince me that, yeah, electricity is going to flow great in this photo. Anyway, we're really stuck, you know, for the next, you know, 6 weeks. Kind of turned into a binary play, which I don't necessarily personally like, where you hold the stock, you get one release with all the assays, and you go from there. So whether you buy the stock today or in 3 weeks, it's really just a, you know, one point in time. Boom, here are the assays. Does it add momentum to New Boston? Does it slow momentum? What else are we? What else is the company doing? Again, I like Northway. Um, so I know they put some forward-looking statements in the Nevada deck. But I don't think that precludes the fact that they could still do, you know, targeted geophysics in Ontario, looking for some of that those kimberlite targets as well. So I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, we'll wait. I think there's going to be an interview with Gunning in the next week or two, so that'll be interesting to see some of his anecdotal interpretation. But other than that, we wait and we get moly, copper, silver, and figure out what the equivalencies are and see where we're at that point. Yeah, sounds good. Till then.